going into my master's, where the subject of need to produce original research came up a lot.
Okay.
I started to think, well, gosh, this Beethoven guy's been covered a lot. I didn't feel like that natural affinity that you speak of in these subjects.
Yeah.
It was a case of, I had to work exceptionally hard to reach their level of understanding, whereas for them it might have been something that may have come a little bit easier, and so they just demonstrated a sort of fluency that I wasn't able to. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, if I'm not really producing, I don't know how I'm going to finish this.
Yeah. Hello everyone. Today we have a very special episode of PathForward Podcast. We have brought the show on the road, and we're currently at Ottawa. Ottawa has actually really made a great impression for me. I really love this city, and I love the architecture in here. It's really beautiful. And along with me is my good old friend, Micheal Turabian. He's a recent graduate of PhD in musicology. His dissertation is focused on Armenian music at home and in the diaspora. Welcome to the show.
Jackie, pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you to be here. Yeah, thank you to be in the show, actually.
That's great.
Yeah. So, do you always have an interest in academic pursuit? Or affinity to academic pursuit, really?
I think, I would say I've always enjoyed the process of learning.
Okay.
Throughout my education, I would say that I think one of the themes we'll probably touch on is this idea of, I didn't have a clear idea at every step of the way where exactly I was going, which can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, it can be a bit frightening, right? You feel like you're working almost without a net. But in terms of academia, I was always interested in learning new things and sharing that knowledge, even at a colleague to colleague level, friend to friend level.
Well, I would imagine in high school you wouldn't have an idea what's it academic.
I had no idea. Right? No, the idea of high school, that was just what do I have to do to get to the next stage?
Okay,
it would have been sort of university, but yeah.
Even in undergrad, probably,
to some extent. There's always that feeling of you're on this path and you want to go to the next thing.
Yeah.
One of the negatives that creates, though, is sometimes you're not the most present in the moment because you're always working about, well, what's the next step? What's the next angle? What's the next challenge? And that's something that I've had to sort of think through and almost slow myself down in that process. But yeah.
But what kind of student were you in high school?
I mean, as a student, I performed pretty well. I was sort of in the B+, A- area. I wasn't, the student who was at the top level, certainly. But I also, I challenged myself. I was, in high school, I was doing most of my classes were in the sciences, maths. I mean, I did other arts like band and that kind of thing, but my focus was principally, the sciences and mathematics and the sort of those core subjects.
Okay.
Things like the humanities, which I sort of came to later.
Yeah.
That was a later sort of development.
Okay.
I had that science perspective, and I mean, in high school at the same time, I was the other side of my, I guess, identity, which certainly became much more present in later years, and going forward was my time at the Royal Conservatory of Music in Brandon, which also is the same place that Brandon University, the music school, is. Yeah. It's both one and the same. So at the same time that I was doing the sort of the sciences and trying to project a future potentially in that field, I was also participating in recitals, festivals, in piano, basically.
I'm always very surprised when you say you're like a B+ student, because in my memory, when we go to university together, I always remember, first of all, you're a really hard worker. I'm probably one of the hardest person I know who was working at that point.
You're too kind.
Well, I'm pretty sure like people are not even showing the class if you remember. A lot of people.
There was a bit of that.
Yeah, but I mean, you work really hard. But does your impression of how you did in high school, does it affect because how your colleagues are doing at that time?
My friends at the time were quite good in these subjects. I'm talking specifically math, sciences.
Would you say they have like more natural affinity to it?
Yeah, I think one of the factors, and this is something that actually served as a good lesson going forward, I didn't feel like that natural affinity that you speak of in these subjects.
Yeah.
It was a case of, I had to work exceptionally hard to reach their level of understanding, whereas for them it might have been something that may have come a little bit easier, and so they just demonstrated a sort of fluency that I wasn't able to necessarily experience without a great deal of work. So it felt like the effort on my level had to be greater for a similar outcome.
Okay.
And at the same time, because I was quite friends with the more high-achieving students in my high school, that served as a good challenge for me because, I didn't want to be seen as less than. So, I'm going to work because I want to be the same as, Micheal or, Ben or Jason, And it wasn't, my marks weren't by any means bad. It was just I took courses that were more demanding. And sometimes when you set a challenge, not everything is going to work out perfectly to plan, right? So you're trying something to see where you are at in relation to the subject. And sometimes you have bumps along the way. But I think one of the benefits of really challenging yourself, even though it might say, your grade point average wasn't as good as this other student's, you learn a certain level of grit that serves you maybe better down the line. So I think that was one of the things that I started to experience in high school.
Okay.
That was a lesson that I kept running into in my undergraduate and beyond. Masters and certainly PhD as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let's move forward. So by the time you are thinking about university application, probably at grade 12 or like later on in grade 11, what do? You were not very sure.
Yeah. Again, another theme of this conversation is going to be there was a level of uncertainty.
Yeah.
I sort of, throughout high school, grade 9 through 11, let's say, my image was, as I said, going into a more science-oriented field. I felt like that was just like a normal path that most students would take. It's a sort of well-worn path. Also coming from a family where, no one ever chose to do music professionally. Yeah. There was no model that I could say, well, so-and-so did it in the family, so maybe I can do that. So that...
sorry to interrupt you, but your mom is also an engineer, right?
Yeah, engineer as well.
And your father is an accountant?
He was an accountant. Yeah,
so
exactly. So like
a lot of number and stuff.
Yeah, sort of conventionally serious fields, right? Okay. So that was... so in my mind, I was like, well, I have to do something in a similar level of seriousness. And, like, came to Canada when I was 5 years old, so the whole image I had was, okay, I have to make sure that my parents are okay, and I'm gonna achieve in this particular field. And so for the longest time, my thinking, and it wasn't something that was dictated to me, which I really am pleased with, because if it was something that was dictated to me, I don't think I would have gone on the path that I've ultimately led, right? There was a level of freedom afforded to me to pursue what I thought was good. But for the longest time, that was the direction that I was heading in. My high school classes, all of them were sort of directed towards a less humanistic and a more science-oriented direction. Yeah. But grade 12 comes along, and suddenly you have to make decisions. Applications for universities, you're going to usually, it's at the beginning of that year, into January that you send your applications, and there's a reviewing process. It's also complicated by the fact that, if I chose to do music, which I ultimately ended up doing, there's an audition that you have to go through, so that means there's other levels of scrutiny to get into those programs. Do two things, sort of split the baby, and decided, well, maybe I do science and music. Right?
Okay.
Maybe that's an option.
Yeah.
But I wasn't certain. And so my family and I went and, I went individually also, actually, and spoke to my piano teacher at the time, Mary Jo Carabray.
You studied with her? I
before I went to university, she was, and so I knew Dr. Patrick Carabray as well.
And you also know Glenn Cloreto.
Well, the late great Dr.
He's gone now.
For others, and I spoke to actually all three of them at the time that I was, because again, I started conservatory at 8 years old. Suddenly I'm almost 18, thinking about, well, do I pursue music? What are the outcomes? So I spoke to them, I sought them out. At the same time, I had the science perspective offered by, again, and I was certainly privileged in the sense that I knew a number of a select group of the sort of professors at Armenian University through family friendships and my experience at the conservatory, meeting other people outside of school.
Yeah.
My dad, one of his best friends is Dr. Lou Byzantine. Of course, he was the president of Armenian University. He was also a scientist. And so in grade 12, I also spoke with Dr. Byzantine as well. So I got the science perspective, I got the music perspective, and I sort of applied to Armenian University. I went into the music direction, but I was also thinking of doing sciences at the same time. That way, you do both, and you see what options you can get out of that.
Okay. So essentially, at undergrad, you actually have done both. You have done a little bit of science.
Yeah, I would say I did principally a music degree with a little bit of science, but that little was a considerable work in the first, I'd say 2 years.
Okay.
Before I came to another realization, but
Eventually, you graduate from undergrad from Brandon. You have decided to pursue a master in musicology. How did this decision come about?
I always faced this, I don't want to just play music, get them from beginning to end without mistakes. I wanted to think a little bit more deeply about the content of the music itself, what the historical contexts were, and all of these sort of things. That sort of started me on this path towards, well, maybe music academia might be interesting, but again, I had no awareness. I took some history classes like you did. You took the same courses more or less. But the term musicology was something that was so foreign to me. I didn't know. At this point, I thought you put ology at the end of any word, and it becomes something.
And you get that in pursuit.
Again, I went through a similar process that I went through before I went into my undergrad, and that was talking to people. So I talked to Dr. Patrick Carabray again, got his perspective. I spoke to a few other people in the performance side. Should I go in that direction? Again, it's a case of, I want to do both. You can't do, you can and you can't. And my ideal image was I'll do the musicology thing. I'll try to do this. We'll see if I get in. I don't know. Because I don't really have that rigorous academic training. Grand University was great, but it was really great in the performance aspect, not in the how do you structure a 50-page essay on
dissertation,
X,
really.
So that was missing from my formation. So I said, you know what, let me apply to some programs. Some of them I know I'm going to get rejected from, but you apply to some dream schools just to say you did. So I applied to some major things, and
anyway, you applied it for a few different schools. Eventually, you get into Toronto, right? You get to U of T. So in the master level in U of T, what type of courses are you taking? And what type of skill, perhaps?
That's a great question.
Yeah, are they trying to instill in you? What type of skill are they trying to teach you, make you become?
The kind of courses that we took were mostly historical, somewhat analytical, not necessarily music theory, but and then so I remember I took a course specifically on Haydn. It was a Haydn course by a Haydn specialist. And really, when you get to the level of the masters, the professors themselves are basically saying, these are the cool things that I'm working on, that I'm still trying to find an answer to. Why don't we put together a course around this idea? And, everyone gets a chance to explore a little bit in that area. So, I did a course on Haydn. But again, I didn't know how to research. And one of the things that I started in terms of my journey in my master's was this process of, well, how do you research? How do you search things up on like a library search and a Boolean search? How do you know what is a good source from a less good source? What's the nature of the field? And how do I then take various sources and put them together? And how do I make these sources talk to one another? How do I, as an author of something, direct the reader? You know? So I took a course on ethnomusicology and specifically field work. That was, and I kind of, again, worked a little bit on this Armenian music topic at the time. And I did kind of a little bit of field work that I integrated into this paper that I wrote. But again, it was a kind of a first go-around. And Toronto for me was really a first go-around in a lot of the things that I would later return to in my PhD. So it was kind of an experimental time intellectually. It was a time where I had to broaden my literary awareness. As I said, in my high school and university, by my undergrad, I started to develop a more humanistic understanding of literature and whatnot. But it was necessary, like that work was fundamentally necessary in my master's.
Okay.
Where I had to, what are the classics of musicology? What are the classics of philosophy? What are the major, this was something I didn't necessarily have a great rounding in. That I needed to develop very quickly, because a master's program is 2 years.
Yeah.
You blink, you miss it. Your development, and what I found, because it was so short, and maybe it led to this thought of, well, maybe I should continue this. I didn't feel like and then you never arrive. In whatever you do, you're constantly emerging.
Do you feel they're trying to teach you how to think and how to learn, or just technically how to construct a paper, or the two is just the same thing?
I think both they're like mutually informative, right?
Okay.
So yes, they're trying to, in a kind of drip by drip way, demonstrate like, what do you need? What are the skills that you want to add to your toolbox when you are thinking about something? So one of the hardest things I found, taking this bigger subject, breaking it down into its component parts, breaking that down and saying, you know what, I think I'm going to focus on this element in this particular paper or this particular essay or chapter or whatever, and build accordingly.
Okay.
It's still something that was hard because
still he wrote a lot.
Writing something that's manageable, that has enough sources, that where you can be original. All of these things were things that were sort of encouraged at the master's level.
By the time you were in master, let's say not the entire master, but even when you're studying of the master, did you have an idea what kind of topic you're going to write for your dissertation?
I had probably 2 or 3 competing ideas.
Okay. But those ideas can be like expand to like a dissertation.
No.
Okay.
So that's a great question, because it engenders a fear, right?
Yeah.
When you think about a topic, it actually started in my undergrad.
Yeah.
I did this paper for Dr. Patrick Carabray on Armenian music and recent recordings that were done by the Canadian Armenian soprano Isabel Darian, right? Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the initial impetus that led me towards Armenian music. But at the same time, I didn't feel like I had I am of Armenian persuasion, but I didn't think I had the grounding culturally in the music, like I did, let's say, with Beethoven.
Yeah. At JW's Music Studio, we offer more than just music lessons. We also nurture future leaders in music education. Our piano teacher apprenticeship program is an initiative designed for advanced piano students who are ready to take the next step from student to teacher. This program provides a structured, supportive pathway into music teaching. Participants are mentored through every stage, from interview and training to guided teaching and independent lessons, all while being compensated as they grow. Whether your teen is exploring a career in teaching or simply wants to deepen their connection to music, this program offers real-world skills in a safe, encouraging environment. Contact us today at jnwmusic@yahoo.ca.
Because my formation was through Western art music. It was in this is what I knew, the language that I spoke was that. And so part of me was like, well, I would love to do maybe, lists, arrangements of Beethoven symphonies for the piano.
He did all 9, right?
Yeah,
he did all 9.
Yeah. And I thought that would be kind of a neat topic.
Well, I'm not so sure that would be enough for a dissertation, though, honestly.
Yeah.
That would be enough for an article. But
yeah. But then, so that was in the back of my mind. That's the Armenian thing could happen, but I have so many things, like I could only see obstacles rather than like a clear path forward. And one of them was I can speak Armenian to some degree, but I'm not exactly fluent. Do I know enough about the musical tradition? No, not really. Do I know that this would be enough for a full-scale master's thesis, let alone a broader dissertation in the PhD? I didn't know. And so you try to, one, you have to kind of trust yourself that you can do it, but also don't let that, and I think one of the things I found was don't let that fear of maybe not fulfilling that goal prevent you from actually exploring and putting yourself into work. Because then you'll never know if you're able to build something.
Yeah.
And that was something that I faced in my master's work and in my doctoral work as well, where it was like, I don't know.
Yeah. But how did the Armenian thing come up, like the Armenian music and diaspora music, like come up to you? What was the story?
There's more focus towards the non-Western classical traditions that started to emerge in the popular consciousness, it felt. I referenced those recordings by Bayraktarian, who had 3 or 4 albums. There's Seruj Krajian, who also worked on a few albums as well that I thought were interesting. This was music that was a little foreign to me, because I was never listening to Armenian art music necessarily. My parents weren't really. I mean, the Armenian music they would listen to was like Charles Aznavour singing in French, right? Okay. So, he's an Armenian crooner, but that was about it. So, but I saw these trends develop, and I, in my conversations with the likes of, Pat Carabray, and then going into my master's, where the subject of need to produce original research came up a lot.
Okay.
I started to think, well, gosh, this Beethoven guy's been covered a lot. You know?
Which is kind of ironic because, like, most people written about subject that is written before a lot of time.
And there's absolute originality probably doesn't exist, but there are subjects that are more exhaustive in a field, like Beethoven sketch studies sort of gave birth to, or was one of the contributors for the birth of musicology as a discipline. So I thought, maybe I have to rethink this. Around that time, though, I was able to work on some Beethoven projects, like the Hammer Clavier project. So I was able to kind of satiate that, or quell that hope to work on that in that area by doing a smaller project.
Okay.
But I thought, maybe this Armenian music might be an entryway. I thought of it mostly from the perspective of ethnomusicology. Maybe I'll go to the Armenian Canadian communities and see what their music making is like, and write, what I encountered, maybe do interviews, because at the time the only other research I found in Armenian music, at least in the English language, that was recent, was the work of a couple scholars who were in ethnomusicology. And so when I saw their work, I thought, oh my gosh, so you can write about Armenian music. So that was great. But then I thought to myself, but they've already written about it and I have to do original research. So there was an anxiety that came out of that. But I thought, I'll try. And when I came to Ottawa, I had to write a thesis in my master's. And I thought, gosh, okay, I guess I'll do it in this Armenian music topic. And at the time, I received a grant from the Social Science and Humanities Research Council based on this proposal I had written about Armenian music in Canada.
Okay.
And I thought, oh my gosh, they gave me money for this thing. I guess I do have to do it. So there was a bit of that, to that point, biggest work that I ended up doing on sort of Armenian music in Canada, focusing on Toronto and Ottawa, and then describing some of the major composers that were in these programs as well. So I started to experiment with it, but I still wasn't satisfied with it as a product. But there was another composer that I also was interested in and that I continued to work on, who was more of a kind of Bela Bartok figure, who went out into the field and transcribed melodies, and
so he did what Bartok did.
And incorporated them in his art music compositions. He didn't compose much. But he
recorded a lot of those folk songs.
He recorded a lot of those folk songs, and I mean he had his own sad end. He was implicated. He was 1915 was a pretty decisive year in Armenian history because of the Ottoman Empire was beginning to collapse, and there was the genocide of Armenians. And Gomidas, who was this particular figure, didn't really. I mean, he bore psychological scars at the in the last 20 years of his life. He died in 35, so his musical output sort of ends in 1915ish. So he stopped collecting music, but he had a catalog of works, and so I was curious about, how do we
do that too?
How do we interpret these musics, because they were of a different version of Armenia than the contemporary version, and so these questions started to come up about, Armenians have lived in diaspora for a number of years. They lived in a divided homeland for a number of years. How did these composers musically portray these versions of home?
But by the end of your master, though, do you understand, in the sense, what are your advisor and the committee, like your dissertation committee, are looking for in your thesis?
Yes and no.
Really?
I mean, yes, in the sense that because I was working in an area that was new to me, I had to always think about, who's my audience? Which is something I didn't think about initially when writing, and something that I would face again in my doctoral studies as well. And so by the end of the writing of the master's thesis, I thought, okay, this is closer to what I think they expect from a master's student in terms of like, the skills that you have attained. Maybe the way that you've written it might not suit every reader. They may have questions. I think I got to a point where, okay, I demonstrated a certain fluency in analyzing a set of music, analyzing the cultural context, and the thing is, there's always further levels of improvement. I think if I produced that work in my PhD, it probably wouldn't have slid. It probably wouldn't have moved forward because they were like, well, we expect a little more rigor in the writing process and all of this. But by the master's level, I knew what I had established, what I had built.
So you have some idea at least.
You have some idea.
You have some idea.
Yeah. But can you always improve? Absolutely.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Is there a better way, a more efficient way of writing? Always.
Yeah. But I would think oftentimes you would expect the audience, whatever, even though like let's say I'm researching on a topic as an undergrad, when you go to the library, I would think oftentimes the way that they write, they're expecting someone who has some grounding in general music, right? Like a general scholar perhaps, but not specialized in your area. That would be mostly the audience. Would it be? Is it what they are kind of expecting even in the PhD level?
I think so. Like one of the things that I noticed, and I had this conversation recently with a colleague of mine, and I was explaining the dissertation process, and they were like, so none of my advisors directly had an awareness of Armenian music.
Yes.
Like at all. They knew of Turiabian, maybe they've heard of Gomidas here and there notionally, but nothing significant. And so it became my job to not only educate myself on the music and learn about it and become a specialist in it, but I kind of had to upwardly manage, if you know what I mean. So like, I knew that my advisor maybe doesn't. There are certain cultural contexts to this music that may not be discernible for everybody. And so I have to bring them along and educate them at the same time that I'm learning about something.
Yeah. And most of the time, even across like different subject, that would be like the similar.
Oh, absolutely. And so that's one of the challenges when you're entering into a higher level research in the doctoral level. Your job, like your committee members have a really rich understanding of music, about Western art music, specifically in the musicology program. Do they speak Armenian? No, they don't.
No.
Do they know the precise, intricate details of primary sources on the subject? No, they don't. That's your job as the researcher, or my job at the time, to contextualize these sources and bring my committee
to them,
to some level of the similar level of knowledge.
Okay.
So I had to sort of upwardly manage at the same time that I was writing this thing and being aware that, well, like your question, do you know who you're writing for? Well, I'm writing for them, but I'm also trying to educate them so that they can advise me in the right way.
Ah, okay. But like before we move on though, do you speak Armenian?
Yeah.
Right? Maybe not the greatest.
I would say I have like 60% fluency of Western Armenian. It was the first. It was the language that was spoken in the house, right?
Yeah. But then do you read? Do you read?
I had to learn.
You have to learn.
I had to learn during my PhD, actually.
Okay.
And so I worked with. There was an Armenian voice teacher at Micheal, in the conservatory.
Yeah.
And she taught me the alphabet, the hieroglyphics of it all, and so I would, I'd take something, and I would look and like, okay, that means this, that means this, that means this, and then I would sound it out, and suddenly, oh, that's what it is. Oh. And that was my initial integration into the Armenian written language.
Oh, wow.
And so it took a long time, and part of the reason, it took me 10 years to write the dissertation, part of that is I didn't have every tool in my toolbox. to do it justice. So you learn the necessary skills to do that. French, I had my background. Like I had I knew how to.
Yeah.
I know how to. Living in Montreal,
Yeah.
although there's a large English contingent certainly around McGill, you hear it in your ears. And I took courses and developed a certain degree of fluency there, which I have to revisit now as well, every so often. And I did German as well.
Yeah.
So I had to do these languages and Armenian on top of it in order to investigate the sources and give voice to these sources. Because these things exist, and you have to, as a scholar, you have to make sure they come to life for your reader. You don't want the reader to do all the work that you're not doing. You know,
That's true.
You need to know the subject.
So eventually you went to McGill. After Toronto, you transferred to Ottawa, and you went to McGill for your doctoral. So what is being a doctoral student like? How do you spend your day?
I feel like it was an extension of the master's program, but in a more temporally diffuse. Like it was a longer period. Like I had to do classes in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, usually they were in the form of seminars, 5 or 6 seminars that you do over the first 2 years. And again, the courses were similar. I did a course on the hammer clavier.
Oh, again.
106. Well, that was the subject, right?
Okay.
And that led to the first publication that I did, because I worked with this professor, who, Tom Bagan, who had, and we had published a group of students who worked there, who were in that class. There was like probably 5 of us who ended up working together on this joint project and published in Keyboard Perspective. So we did that. I worked on a seminar called Musical Crossover. This is where, you know, what happens when 2 genres that are unlike one another start integrating with each other. So, you know, I did these kind of classes. I did language classes, French and German, at the intermediate level, to pass the language component that was necessary. And then I moved into, and each of these classes you work on a final project. So every, you know, you worked on something significant that, you know, you want to work on that fits the theme of these courses. And then at a certain point, usually at the end of your second or into your third year, you do something called a comprehensive exam.
Yeah, which I wanted to ask you about.
So you have to have all of these courses done, and you have to have the language component before you can actually enter into this thing, right?
Let's hold on to this thought first. Let's hold on to the thought about the comprehensive exam.
Exactly.
That would be worth like...
that in and of itself is a big component. But even before that point, the music library at McGill was my home. Like
pretty much.
I stayed there. I'd study there. I'd write there. That was my daily routine.
Okay.
You know, we had significant readings in every class. We had to, you know, it's a seminar. It's not like a lecture. So you have to yourself give meaningful, you know, participation in these courses.
But did you ever feel lost though in the doctoral level? Do you feel lost when you research and preparing for your dissertation?
I think that's a common feeling are equipped for.
Okay.
In the sense that, like, no one gives you the handbook of when lost, do this.
Okay.
Yeah. Something in academia, typically, it's quite a solitary kind of act. You're writing. There's a very interior kind of thinking.
Yeah.
You're analyzing something. It's you and a piece of paper, and you're trying to figure out something. You have a set of questions that it's very inner work. And so as a result, sometimes you get carried away with the interiority of it, and you're like, well, I don't know, what's the big deal here? What am I missing?
Okay. Yeah.
And unless you're able to have a large set of work already established, sometimes even your advisor is like, well, I need to see something in order for me to help tease something out of you, right? Okay. And so there's a feeling of, certainly in the dissertation writing, and something that, I mean, I think I faced it almost at every single moment. That's a level, that feeling of absolute uncertainty.
Really?
Of when I was writing, I mean, I would write a chapter, I would think it would be okay, it's fine. It was a bit rushed. I'd submit it, red marks all over the place, sort of a rewrite, right?
Yeah.
And when you're rewriting something, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to do this again.
Yeah. Mind you, that's like 40 page probably.
Let's say, a 40 or 50 page chapter
Yeah.
that took you 3 months of thinking, and you have to start over again. So there's a constant, again, this thing that I talked about in relation to high school, that idea of you have to work really hard in order to achieve the same level of someone else who it came naturally to. That's not always the case, and certainly when you're at a PhD level, the level of hard work is always up there. It's not easy, so not everybody is getting it like this, right?
Okay.
But I felt like this level of grit having to return time and time again when you're facing these roadblocks, which is such a normal part, but it's a very isolating part of the dissertation writing of the doctoral level. That isn't what you see in, like, when you think of like popular depictions of academics. You don't see the darker side, the solitary side. You see more like, he wears a sweater vest and talks to a class.
Which I've done those things too.
I
imagine.
I have the sweater vest. Also, seeking out community. One of the things that I did, when the pandemic had hit, I hadn't really written as much as I would have liked. I maybe had half a chapter at this point. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, if I'm not really producing, I don't know how I'm going to finish this.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic had hit, I ran into my advisor in the library, and I passed her in a kind of sheepish way because I knew I hadn't produced anything in a while. And she had suggested something like, well, maybe you need a dissertation coach. I thought, okay. So I Googled dissertation coach, and I found one.
Oh.
And Allison Miller. And I thought, okay, let me reach out.
Okay.
And it was a particularly desperate day. I was at this writing retreat trying to put some thoughts together. I wasn't getting anything, and I said, I'm going to send this email, reach out and see what happens. And that started this new, level of support. So I knew I had my advisor, coach, and by the time pandemic hit, they started a daily writing retreat. Where you go on Zoom with 20 or 30 other people who are in the same boat. And suddenly what happens is you see other people that are in a similar boat to you. They're struggling too. So I'm not on my own. And that level of community built. Became quite good friends with many of them, and still in contact with them. And that took away that sense of alienation, even though there's some of that in the doctoral period. Certainly when you are writing something as big as a dissertation.
This episode is brought to you by JW Music Studio. We offer piano and guitar lesson in both group and private setting. Group lesson is a great way to ignite a student's musical interest. It offers engaging activities that will reinforce specific skill sets. Ensemble playing will strengthen their rhythmic feeling and listening abilities. Most of all, they will experience the joy of making music with others. Contact us to find out our available schedule.
Yeah, and I think the funny thing is, like, it sometimes it's common, like, of course, by trade, I'm a piano teacher now, and I join different associations, like the RMTA, the Registered Music Teacher Association. When you talk to other people, you begin to see a lot of the teachers feel the same way, because like teaching piano just by yourself, you face your student most of the time, and you deal with your business. And I would just begin to think, wow, actually, how much better would it be if you have a community? And because I joined the Registered Music Teacher Association, I began to find that, and I often suggest a younger teacher, hey, you need to join this association. So you talk to people, you begin to realize, hey, the problem that you face on is common to all.
Yeah.
And you don't feel like, oh, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
It's common, it's okay. And I probably that is what you.
It was a
too.
major thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a major thing because I knew, and certainly at the time of the pandemic, it used to be once or twice a day.
Yeah.
For a couple hours, someone will talk you, like someone talks to you initially, and then you have, 50 minutes of, everyone goes off camera, goes mute, works.
Yeah.
Then you're brought back in at a midpoint, and then you go back and write again.
Yeah.
So it kind of synthesized this focus space that you needed, which was helpful. I worked with a dissertation coach at the same time as both part of the same company.
Yeah.
And then I started to produce.
Yeah.
Because I felt, okay, I'm not on my own. There are these folks.
Yeah.
You make connections outside of your own discipline too. You get to, yeah.
Yeah, and we have a special guest office.
Yeah, he's giving his back to us, but
he want to be in the camera.
Yeah, he's
What's his name?
Seamus.
Seamus. Okay. Okay, but let's get back to it. Now, like what you were mentioned, you have to write a comprehensive exam.
Yeah.
For every basically for every humanities subject, there would be a.
In music.
Yeah,
specifically music.
But your exam is specifically for music, but for different humanities also.
Oh yeah, every doctoral, as far as I know, I mean, it's likely in the sciences as well.
Yeah.
But there's a point. I was a doctoral student until I passed my comprehensive exams, and you become a doctoral candidate. It's what's in a word, but
really?
That was you had to demonstrate a level of fluency in all aspects of music history.
Okay.
I really.
So if you don't pass, you're not a candidate.
No.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of the hurdles you have to. One of the major hurdles you have to pass.
Okay. So let's explain it a little bit first.
Sure.
So what's a comprehensive exam? And to me, I knew that already, even though in undergrad. First of all, I think the comprehensive exam has a different part. You have to explain a little bit too, and how long does it take, and how do you prepare for it? Which is to me, is like, how do you prepare for something like this? Okay.
Yeah, something that's mammoth. It's an examination that takes place over 2 days.
2 days?
Or 1 day, essentially, where it's a 1 day exam.
Yeah.
You have about 8 different topics that you have focused on in different periods of music history. So you usually start with the medieval period. You just go sequentially.
Yeah. All the way up to the contemporary
classical,
time.
Baroque, or Baroque, classical, Romantic, 20th century, and various other, and you have to have,
so all the way to contemporary time, like
correct.
any other period.
But you focus on very specific subjects within each time. So, for instance, in the medieval period, my topic was the motet, which was a sacred and secular type of vocal music that thrived between, 1000 into the Renaissance, so 1500, even further.
Yeah.
But so my focus was the medieval motet and its development, and so for every topic I'd go to a specialist at the Micheal Music School, and I'd be like, okay, so I'm planning on doing a topic in this, area.
You have 8 topics to people.
Yeah, 8, and so one of them I'm like, okay, I'm doing the motet, and I would, in conversation, and I would bring a bibliography that I had prepared of all the sources that I would look through, and because they're specialists, so like, well, this one I wouldn't look at, maybe this topic, this reading you'll have to do, maybe think about this, and then I would collate a final bibliography. I'd meet with them one more time, and they would approve it. As soon as they approve it, you start analyzing all of these works and reading and all of that. I do that for 8 different subjects.
So how many books in each bibliography?
At minimum, it's usually around 20.
Wow. Okay. So it could be more.
It could be more, but honestly, it's not about the volume.
Yeah.
The less, the better.
Oh, okay.
Not because, I think 18 sources is great for you to have a very good, have an awareness of a topic, right?
Okay.
And you get the best sources. You don't want to, again, it's this thing of you don't want to just stack your bibliography with sources that aren't going to be useful to you.
Okay.
So again, when you're crafting these things, and that's one of the things you learn, you look for the best possible sources for what you want. Right?
So that's like 160 book at least.
Something like that. And books and articles.
So how long does it take for you to prepare for that?
It's about 6 months of preparation, roughly.
Okay.
There's a particular room that I lived in during that 6 months in the library, on the third floor of the library, where I had the scores, the books, and I would you analyze, you think about, you try to write potential responses that you think they might pose during the actual exam.
The question that they might ask.
Yeah,
basically.
and so you go through subject by subject by subject.
Yeah.
Take copious notes, synthesize, think. It's really that kind of a demanding time.
Yeah.
And so, and that's one component. So those are so when you enter the exam itself, they give you a computer that doesn't have an internet connection because, of course, you're not supposed to. You
cannot research.
So you have basically all of this knowledge that you've accrued over that 6 month period, and they'll ask a question on the medieval motet. Boom, here's a question. Here's a question on the Renaissance Mass. Here's a question on the Baroque concerto.
But anyway, they will give you, how many questions they will give you?
So they give you 8 questions.
And you have to answer?
Based on each of the bibliographies, and you answer that question as best you can. You can discard 2, I believe.
Okay.
So you have 3 hours for the first 3 questions, and then you have an afternoon session of the second 3 questions.
You go to a special room for this too, right?
Yeah, there's a room in the library they put you in.
Yeah.
They
give you a computer,
they
no
give you
internet
the
connection.
computer. You plug in, you do your thing, then they give you the sheet.
Okay.
I actually think it was 3 hours for 6 questions, if I'm not mistaken. So you do it all in one go.
Okay.
And then the afternoon, the other component that was a challenge was we did something called score identification. Now a score, it's a musical score. You sight read the thing, and they would photocopy a particular score, and you had a set of 10, I think.
Okay.
And in the afternoon they put you in another room, so you're getting a tour of the music building. They put you in another room with the 10 sheets of music, and you're like, okay, so who is this? Who could this be? And you're like, well, this might be like a Brahms intermezzo. It could be Chopin. No, it's not. The figuration's not exactly Chopin. And you wrestle with each example, and you have to write why you came to the conclusion that you did, and based on the convincing nature of your response and the accuracy. And it's not about getting the right answer. It's not about if I saw a Beethoven piano sonata and I said this is Beethoven and not explain why, I don't get the point.
Okay.
The point is not about necessarily just accurately describing what you see, being convincing in your argument.
Okay.
So that was the other half of the comprehensive exam. So you have to demonstrate the fluency in the 8 topics, and then figure out the scores and what they are.
So basically one day.
And then and then at the end of all of that, you've submitted everything. It's all is well and good. You have to do a defense of your answers. So you meet with the committee.
Oh, for the score identification.
No, for both.
Oh, for both. Okay.
So for the answers that you gave and for the score identification. And you meet your committee, and they ask you questions about, well, you didn't say this about the medieval motet, why not? It could be anything, but it's based on the sources that you read, it's based on the question. And if suddenly they ask a question that is completely outside of that, they're not going to do that mostly. Yeah. Although, you never know.
Okay. Oh, yeah, and that's the other thing. You also have to defend for your dissertation, like the topic of your dissertation. Yeah. Let's just talk about in the doctoral level, how many times you need to do this? So you write the proposal for the dissertation. In the doctoral level? In the doctoral level. Okay. I did it also in my master's at U of O. Yeah. You write the proposal, and at the time the proposal was something like 20 to 30 pages of something. Okay. And I don't know if it's, and then music theory, I think it was like a 2 or 3 page proposal, but it had to be, sharp. Yeah.
And then
Oh, sorry, but the proposal, is it like a synopsis? Like,
so sort of a synopsis of
Yeah.
what you're going to do and what you think the results are going to be.
okay.
Okay. So I wrote something, submitted it, and then I was invited to do a defense of my topic. So the people on the committee would ask me questions about, well, have you thought about this? What are you going to do in this case?
But they argue about like why you write this topic.
Yeah, and at the time, because it points to a question you had before, you talked about how, did you worry about having something that may not be a dissertation?
Yeah.
I was a bit worried about the Armenian topic not being fully a dissertation.
Yeah,
which,
not substantial
yeah,
enough.
not substantial enough to do it. So what I wrote in my proposal was very different to what I actually executed in my final product. Which was also another source of anxiety because I felt like, do I have to send another proposal in? What happened? That wasn't the case.
Okay.
But the more I found out about Armenian music, the more I realized, oh, actually, this is a dissertation.
Okay, but is it common though? Like,
It's common.
yeah, you have
We
proposal.
don't hear about it that
Okay.
much because I don't think people talk about it so much. But
Yeah.
your topic is always emerging and changing
Okay.
based on available information. And so by the time I had prepared the proposal, the available information for me suggested, I don't know if I have enough here to do a fully fledged dissertation on this. But you know what? I can talk about Armenian music as one chapter. I can do another thing about, because I was interested in nostalgia as a concept in music. Well, about the Ranz de Vache and Swiss music, and maybe I can do this and and then piece these things together and have these as individual chapters with no discernible thread other than the concept of nostalgia.
Okay.
But then when I started doing the research during the pandemic and finding more avenues, I thought, actually, I want to do Armenian music. I have enough here, and I don't want to have a hodgepodge of different subjects put together loosely. I'd like to have one thing that's cohesive. And so I moved away from what I had proposed in the proposal and what I had discussed with my advisors at the time.
Yeah.
I communicated to both my direct advisor and my secondary advisors that, listen, I'm moving in this direction. They said, okay. And then it was a matter of me executing the final product.
Okay. So after the proposal, what defense you also have to do after that?
The final defense of the dissertation.
Okay. So only
So
one
once
more
it's
time.
done.
Okay.
So you've written the dissertation.
Yeah.
You submit it. It goes through a rigorous period of analysis, and so your advisors then read through it, come up with questions. You may have to resubmit based on what they suggest. You have to do a resubmission. It's a pain, but you do it. And then when you get there, at least in my case, I had to do a resubmit, which was another challenge I had to. It's like you climb a mountain, you've written it,
Yeah.
and then there is another 50 foot to the summit, and you're like, okay, let me do it.
Yeah.
And you climb up it a little bit more to the final thing, and then I resubmitted it. Then I got invited for a defense.
Yeah.
Final defense. Went to. And at the time, they were doing in-person defenses again. And for me, I didn't want to do it over Zoom. Because I knew, I had watched a number of my friends who went through the PhD program. Of course, during the pandemic, it was necessary. They were exclusively doing it through Zoom, and it made sense.
Yeah.
But, I wanted, by the time I had defended, which was in, I think, March of 24, they were doing in-person stuff again. And so I said, let me go to Montreal and do the defense. It's nice to be in that space. It's not as cold feeling as it would be, I imagine, clicking end call on a Zoom once you've achieved this really big thing.
Yeah.
So,
and also it's open to public too. Right?
yeah,
So some
and
people will
I
come
had
to.
people, like of course my family came from Ottawa, and they were very supportive throughout the whole process.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able
Yeah.
to go through all of this without their help. And then I had a few friends that still lived in Montreal who came in, and a few others that I hadn't met, but they go to these things because it's a public thing. And so it was It was a 3-hour defense.
Oh,
So questions from each committee member, going through multiple times, and then,
But sounds to me it's almost like a celebratory kind of
once you get
process.
to that defense,
Yeah.
they may ask you difficult questions. You might
Yeah.
be a little bit, I didn't anticipate that. But they're not like they wouldn't put you in that position with the intent. At least I haven't seen it
Okay.
or experienced it with the intent of not.
Giving you the doctoral.
You get invited for the
Yeah.
defense.
So the final defense.
Then that's when you don't take you can't take any supporting documents. You can't have your dissertation be like, well, on page 200 this happened.
Yeah.
So you have to have an awareness of course you've written it, so I'd hope that you have an awareness. But sometimes I focused on the first chapter a year ago. How am I going to remember?
That's
so you
true.
have to go through it and prepare accordingly.
Oh wow! So you did prepare for it too,
Yeah.
whatever it
Yeah.
is. Okay. So what do you learn from this period of your life of an academic pursuit all the way from undergrad to PhD? Actually, how do you view the path of academic pursuit? How do you view it, and would you suggest others to do the same? So three different questions. In
Yeah,
one.
3 different. So what did I learn? Would I recommend it? I think I would recommend it. I came in with I'm a bit of a rigid personality. Like if something is not so, I get kind of ornery about it. But one of the things that I kind of afforded myself, I guess, in my education was learning through experience, and not having I had a general idea. I kind of had. It's like one of these maps.
Yeah.
That I don't know all the details, but I kind of know general location of things. And so as I, went from high school to undergrad, things became a little clearer, and I thought, there's a fork in the road that goes this way or that way. Let me see which one I'll take. I came to a decision. And you're always facing these things. And so I think I was able to sort of explore and find my path. Why I would encourage others to do it is I don't think I knew that musicology or academic pursuit was something that I was necessarily great at. Sometimes we view ourselves through the lens of, in high school I struggled with X and Y, and I don't want to do that because it's going to be a challenge. And I think sometimes the rewarding part is engaging with the challenge and learning out of it.
Yeah.
For me, it took longer. I mean, and that was not just because I did 3 degrees. I took a long time in my doctorate, in part because the subject was quite niche. But now, from this vantage point, I look back and I think, well, it took the time it took to do something that was meaningful. And I think that feeling is a great one. When you can do it. I always came from the perspective, my dad, my parents both would say this, is, education is never wasted. You learn something out of it. You get something out of it. You may not feel the material benefits of it immediately.
Yeah.
You learn how to, and this is a really important life lesson, you learn how to bounce back from setbacks, because you're always going to have them.
Yeah.
And a setback might be, here's that 50-page chapter, none of it works. Good luck. And then what do I do with that? Or, that grant that you applied for that was going to help fund you for a couple of years can't work. It's not. Or that course that you applied to, I'm sorry, we're going to give it to somebody else. All of these things, they may seem small at the moment, but when you experience them in a short period of time, it sort of knocks your belief.
Oh, okay.
And so I think one of the things that I was fortunate in was I had a support system in my family. I was able to see, friends of mine that went through the same process. There was a support there. The friends I made through the academic writers space, through the dissertation coach, all of that helped encourage me to continue. I always felt like I faced a fork in the road, whether it was, do I do music or science? Do I do piano or do I focus on musicology? Do I, and the way you navigate that is, important.
But you always can get back to it.
You can.
Yeah, I know you for a long time, and what is always impressed me is the thing that you have mentioned so many times, the grit. It always, when we talk, always feel like you have different challenges or different setback, but you always can bounce back. Where do you feel this is naturally to you, or you have to learn from it? Where do you think this quality comes from?
I think it comes from a couple different places. I don't think it's innate. I don't think it's something that like, oh yeah, I can do it. It's something that you build. And I don't know if that's a good thing, because if you're good at, people are resilient. So there are much worse problems, that one can go through, and challenges. And so, so you have to have, I guess, some perspective, do I get into this program or that program? If you got into one of them, that's pretty good, So, but I think for me, I have a personality that is a bit, like I have a nerve in my stomach almost, where it's like, if things don't go to plan, what do I do? I get very hyper fixated. That personality type might be useful, I guess, when it comes to, you face a certain problem and you're determined to finish it. I also felt like I don't want to let people down, right? I've had this since a very young age. I don't want to let my parents down. I don't want to let my family down. I don't want to, even though that's something that you project onto yourself. It's not something that you're actually doing. But I think that level of I've gone this far and I want to do what it takes to get to finish. I was able to do this hard thing. I was able to do that other thing. It's an additive thing.
So you just build more confidence, you feel?
You build more confidence, yes. Even though I'm not like the most confident person in the world, right? There's, you're always going to face a challenge, but avoiding it is not going to help you. You want to engage with it, so that you can find a solution that is good and useful. And if you believe in something, you don't want to, I think part of it is you don't want to be filled with the regret of like, I gave that up because of this situation, because we all have that. We have something that we didn't do exactly and we may have let go. I also was, I've always struggled with letting things go, whether it, even with piano, I played for a number of years at a pretty good level, and then I kind of had to move to the academic side, and that was scary for me because I was leaving the tactile performance side into another side of music, and so like this idea of grit or whatever you want to call it was just something that I had to face, because you're always running into challenges and setbacks. So and honestly, I had a support system that helped me up in a way that I think you're only as often as good as the community that you surround yourself with. And I've been fortunate in my case that my family, in difficult moments when I didn't know which way I was going with a dissertation, or were there both morally and sort of materially to help me. And all of these things help, and they give you, like, when you see them being confident in you, it's kind of a responsibility for you to feel that confidence in yourself and to live up to what you hope you want to live up to.
But anyway, thanks so much.
It's been a
Michael.
pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
and
Jackie.
Congratulations for your finish of dissertation in public and everything.
Thank you so much. That's
graduated from the doctoral level.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Different this time.